this interview is brought to you by Riverside, one of the best tools to create high-quality podcasts and interviews from anywhere. I'm excited to welcome our special guest today, Heather from Heather Studio. She has sold over $200,000 on Etsy, and she teaches you everything that you need to know to get your shop up and running and to start making daily sales on Etsy. So Heather, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us how you got started with selling print on demand on Etsy.
Yeah, thank you for having me on your channel today. And I started my whole Etsy journey in 2020. Well, actually 2020 when I first reopened my store. So I began during the pandemic when I was actually cut hours from my 9 to 5 and I just bought a house. So I realized, hey, I have to find an additional income stream through some medium that's not the regular 9 to 5. So I went online, like a lot of people did during the pandemic. Luckily, I wasn't laid off. I still had some hours to pay the bills, but definitely not enough for just buying a home, getting furniture for the home and all that. So I looked to YouTube and I found a few YouTube videos just talking about print on demand and Etsy. Some videos talking about print on demand and Shopify. And that's when I was like, okay, I guess I'll try my hand at this and see if it works. So I opened up my store in 2020 and I sold neck gaiters, and I was trying to kind of cater towards people looking for masks, but come to find out a few months later, neck gaiters were not widely accepted in the States, at least, as like a form of mask protection. So I realized very soon that that would not work long-term anyways to sell those, but I did have a few sales. The production times at the time were like 2 to 4 weeks. And that scared me to kind of like close my store. And then on top of that, with the production times, the neck gaiters and anything that had COVID-19 in SEO was being flagged and taken down on Etsy. So those were just 2 red flags for me that I was like, this is a sign I should not be doing Etsy and print on demand. So I closed my store and I got my hours back at work. And I was working full time. I was working even overtime most weeks. And I remember I was so happy I had my job back. But then over a few months, I realized, hey, I'm like really sad and I don't know why I'm sad. Then I really looked internally and I realized that I really had that taste of print on demand and I knew I had to go back into it because it just made me super excited. And even if it wasn't going to be a full-time thing, I did still want to try it again and reopen a store. I had that like entrepreneur, heart where it's like, oh, I can start a store online and grow it. In 2021, I decided to restart my store. And for the first 4 weeks, I had no sales at all. And I felt like I missed my chance with Etsy and print on demand because, the year prior, I had a few sales with the neck gaiters. And I was like, oh, man, this kind of stinks that I just restarted and I'm not getting any sales. So I went back to my store and I just kept working on it. I was like, you know what, just because I'm getting crickets, I'm going to keep going, keep posting. So I posted my first 100 listings. They were probably my worst listings yet. And I deactivated a lot of those listings. So those are gone now. But I got one sale at the end of January and it was from some random stranger online. I did not post on social media, not anywhere. I just posted listings on Etsy. And I was like, wow, some random person on the internet found my item and liked it enough to purchase it. This is crazy. So then that kind of revved me up for more. So I started posting as many different types of listings in so many different niches and design styles. And then in February, I believe I had like over 30 sales. In March, I finally hit 100 sales in 1 month. And then April, May, July, I had a few hundred sales plus. And then by the end of the year, I earned over 200K. And now this year, I'm at 430K in total revenue for my store, which this year I haven't really posted any new listings. So if I would have kind of scaled up my shop, I feel like I would have probably doubled that revenue, but I kind of went back a little bit on my posting strategies and what like brought me to this place originally. But just from that compounding, first work in my store in January of 2021, I think that really kind of has kind of given me a really cool place in my Etsy store now, where it's kind of just getting sales left and right still, from the work I did in 2021. So kind of
Wow.
cool.
That's so awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. I think the part that stood out to me the most was in the beginning stages, you created listings, but you didn't have any sales from the get-go. You said you had crickets. And I feel
Yeah.
like for anyone, it would have been extremely easy to just quit and throw in the towel and not keep with it. But because you stuck with it, you are where you are now and you're making
Mhm.
money online, which a lot of people can't say they're doing.
Yeah.
So you said your first year you sold around $200,000, and now you're just close or over $400,000 in revenue in your shop. What would you say the key ingredients are to really hitting that mark and that type of revenue in your store?
I think that listing volume is definitely number one key ingredient. Diversification of your niches that you're in is the second key ingredient. So I never stuck to just one niche. I did multiple niches just so that, certain niches sell during different parts of the year. So if I diversified my niches, then I'd get sales all year round. However, even if, like, I look back at it now and I'm kind of like, well, maybe if I did the holidays like Christmas, you could sell big for a few months and still kind of have the same revenue numbers in total in a year too. So that's always another strategy I think about now, that I'm like, what if I did this a little bit differently? But the evergreen niches is where I've kind of sat in. But I feel like either way, if you did holiday, the seasonal niches, and the evergreen, I think that's a pretty good, ingredient to have. And then the third is just, following trends and maybe even starting your own trends, as far as, a lot of the bestsellers that I've seen on Etsy and that I've personally had are different trends than what was on Etsy. And I think that's what got me to having multiple bestseller listings in the niches I was in. So,
And you don't have to share this if you don't want to, but for most of your trend research that you're doing, are you looking directly on Etsy or are you looking outside of Etsy and then bringing it to the marketplace?
so I have gotten inspiration mainly through Etsy, but I will say sometimes I do, like if I'm scrolling on Facebook, I'll get like those print on demand store ads, from maybe Shopify stores. And I'm like, wow, those are some really good designs, good trending types of designs. So I've pulled some inspiration, like just doing my own market research on things that will show up, things that I personally would buy. So I'm like, oh, this is a great market research time, while I'm on Facebook, just liking posts. So I do that. And then also I go on Etsy and I look at past bestsellers and kind of what they're doing and what I could do differently usually.
Have you experimented with Etsy ads at all to scale your business to what it is today, or have you just focused on ranking organically in the marketplace?
Yeah, I've mainly stuck to organic scaling methods, which is just through increasing my listing volumes, but and also utilizing social media, email marketing, things like that. But I have branched out to Etsy ads this past year. I have not really scaled that much though, as much as I have organically. So I've tested the water with ads, but not. I haven't had that scaling that I would like. So yeah.
So I feel like I get a lot of questions often on my channel and in my Facebook group where they say, is it required to run ads in order to succeed on Etsy? What would be your advice for a new seller when it comes to ranking organically or running ads, or just, yeah, I like to hear kind of your side on that.
Yeah, I think that organic ranking is where I would suggest going first, just to test the market first with all of your listings. I feel like that's kind of the mistake I have seen a lot of newer Etsy stores make, is throwing a bunch of money into Etsy ads and not seeing any sales. And sometimes the reason why they're not getting sales is due to not having trust built in their store through reviews and having multiple sales. Um, and then also just not knowing what may sell in certain markets, or in certain niches and design styles for different product types that's what I've kind of seen. So that's why I recommend starting with organic, seeing if you get sales without ads. And then the items that you do get sales on, those are the items I would put ads on if you're not seeing as much traffic as you would like.
Cool. That's good insight. I've watched a handful of your videos on your channel, and I know in your story you shared how you reached out to a lot of Facebook groups in the beginning stages, and you had admins say yes, you had some admins say no. Is this something you'd recommend to a new seller, or any insight on this?
Yeah, so I would recommend it, but I feel like ever since I brought up that strategy, a lot of people have been getting declined now because I think that a lot of admins are just getting swarmed with questions now. So my new kind of strategy for 2023 is rather than joining a group, being the group sometimes, rather, if you find yourself in a passionate niche, let's say you're a parent and you identify with the parent niche and moms and dads, and you can build a community off of that. That's also advice and support maybe for parents. And then also you sell your own t-shirts, and say, hey, by the way, in between the content and like adding some type of value to your community than just selling all the time, you can kind of be your own group. I think that's one of the strategies I've suggested. And then also like meme Facebook pages. I think those are really great, or Instagram pages. So that's kind of something I've been suggesting as far as the new year, so people don't get declined as often.
I think that's awesome. Like I feel like it's so easy just to join a group and then want to sell, but be involved and contribute to the group before you try to post whatever your listing is or whatever it is. So awesome
Mm-hmm.
insight. So I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about, I know in the beginning stages you had that feeling of just entrepreneurship and you wanted to be able to sell online. You touched base on it, but what would you say your why is? Like, why are you sticking with this? Why are you not giving up when times are hard? What motivates you to keep doing print on demand and selling on Etsy?
Yeah, I think what has motivated me from the beginning is it, and I feel like a lot of people have felt this recently with the pandemic and the economy and kind of like the ups and downs we're seeing. I think that for me, my why has just been not feeling like one income is enough anymore to support me and, a future family or anything like that. That's what really makes me nervous, where I'm just like, I don't think one income will ever be like enough for me personally. As far as like, when I had my Etsy and print on demand business, I didn't even feel like I wanted to do that by itself. That's why once I started on YouTube and I started to see monetization on YouTube, I was like, okay, this is my second income. I feel okay quitting my job. And I stayed in my job part-time. I asked my manager, I said, hey, I don't know how Etsy and the store will go. And I really hope you consider hiring me back if I were to quit. But I did ask for part-time hours for about 6 months. It took me 6 months because I was making six figures in take-home profit on my Etsy and print-on-demand business. That revenue aside, I was, making six figures, and I had never seen that in my whole entire life in a year. And I still didn't feel stable enough with that to quit. So, like for me, it's always been having two different income streams in order to like feel stable. And I guess that's just been me since the pandemic, and that really woke me up to all that.
So do you mind sharing how many streams of income you currently have now?
Oh yeah, yeah. I actually have a second YouTube channel now, so it's Hey Heather on YouTube, where I go over my income streams too. And sorry, not to like add more plugs on your channel, but
No, that's awesome. I think that's you share valuable content, and this is why I reached out to you, because I love the Hey or Heather Studio channel, and so 100% share what you are
yeah.
doing because people will want to watch.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, for me personally, that's what I suggest to, like my students and my clients and people who watch my YouTube, um, to like branch out to different income streams. Like, don't let Etsy be your only. Etsy is a great platform, given, but I feel like quitting your job just for one income stream, all I always suggest is to always see if you can get a second one in a different form, or at least have a backup plan just in case, just because, you never know. But with that being said, I do have, I want to say it's like 5 to 6 income streams now. So one of mine is, of course, Etsy and print on demand. The second's YouTube. The third is affiliate income. Fourth is sponsorships. Fifth is my digital products and online courses. And then I feel like, the sixth is my credit card rewards. So through print on demand and charging that all on credit cards, let's say I were to open up a new credit card with like sign on reward if you spend so and so amount. That's generally a few $1,000s a year. So I kind of include that in the bracket. So
Awesome. Something I love about this is this all started with one decision to start selling on Etsy. And because you made that one decision, it led you to your next income stream and then your next one and then your next one. But if you never stuck with it when times were hard, you would not be, you may be very comfortable, but not be where you're at now. So that's a great lesson to learn from Heather, who has made the decision to start and not only started, but grew in several different ways of making several streams of income. And I think it's so true too, because you'll hear so many horror stories on any marketplace that you sell on. If you don't own the marketplace, you can wake up the next morning and everything can be gone like that. So it's so important to diversify and not have everything in one basket, because you never know what would happen.
going on that too, because I know some people have reached out to me and said, hey, like I'm at the point where I can quit my 9 to 5 with Etsy and print on demand, but like you've suggested, Heather, like, what do I do if I don't want to do, like, you don't have to do the same route I kind of took, where it's like YouTube and all of that, because some people just don't want to be, an influencer. And while there is a lot of income streams now through that, I feel like, what I suggest to a lot of previous students too is maybe opening up their own like Shopify or website. Like you said, like one platform, your additional income stream could just be another platform, and kind of having your hand on how to run ads for a Shopify store, things like that. So I love that you mentioned that too, because I think there's other ways to kind of get additional income stream outside of, what a lot of people see is, maybe becoming an influencer or a coach of some sort too. So
Awesome. I think too, on that subject, I think it's smarter, and others might disagree, but I think it's smarter to stick with your current job and then grow your side hobby or your side business. And then once it's ready to jump, then jump. Don't quit immediately and jump, because it doesn't happen overnight. Like some may have a lot of success, but it doesn't happen overnight where your store takes off. It's going to be really hard, and you might be limited on income. So I think it's smart
yeah.
to wait till it's the time to jump, but don't be afraid to jump when time's ready. But
Yep. Agreed.
another question I have for you, Heather, is we're coming to the end of the year, and I know you hear a lot of people say, oh, they started during the beginning of the pandemic, so that's why they've had success and why they are where they are. Do you think it's still possible? And would you recommend starting selling on Etsy coming 2023?
Yes, I definitely, I feel like you probably get this a lot on your channel as well, because a lot of us, we did kind of start in that 2019, 2020 era. But I will say that I've had so many students, so many previous clients who have messaged me and emailed me in the past few months, who have said, hey, I started in 2022 and I really thought that window of opportunity was gone. And here I am making 6 figures, in my Etsy and print on demand business. And it's all because I found, so-and-so's YouTube or your YouTube. So I feel like going into 2023 and the future years, that is still going to be a common thing, even though, some of us started at a prime time, maybe for online shopping and people not buying in retail stores. But now we're seeing, people are still online shopping. That hasn't went away. And also for print on demand as an industry, I read a statistic. There's some article that was recently posted for projections in certain markets. And in 2021, it said that the market was at 4.9 billion and that by 2030 it's supposed to be at 30 billion plus. So, as we go forward, that's going to be, it's just going to be increasing as time goes on. Even on some online boutiques, Walmart now has their own third-party marketplace for, I think Printify is connected to them right now. So there's a lot of big time corporations that are kind of going into print on demand too, or seeing a need for print on demand sellers on their marketplaces. So
it's not too late, and
yeah.
don't miss out on the opportunity. You've shared a lot of valuable information that I feel like we could jump back and forth on. But wrapping up this interview here, if you could give a last few final pieces of advice for someone just getting started, what would be like your things you would recommend for someone new after the experience that you've had and what you've learned selling on Etsy the past few years?
Yeah, I think my top advice would be to start today. And I know that's obviously the thing out of, if you had anything to take from this interview, is to start today. But I cannot tell you how many people I've had email me and say, "Hey, Heather, I have been watching your videos for months, but I haven't started." And I say, and then they say, "Oh, now I started," because I do send them one email that just says, "Hey, if you can start today, because this is the best time to start is today." I heard on one podcast, someone said this quote that kind of stuck with me, that is, the best time to start something was yesterday, but the second best time to start is today. And that's what I think about a lot, where I see a lot of comments like that and emails. And that's like my number one tip. The second tip is to just keep going, even if you may not see sales. And that's something that, I look back, and I stopped my store in 2020. And as everyone has seen now, I've earned multiple six figures in my business. So just think that if I stopped, I would have still, been working my 9 to 5. I wouldn't have this financial freedom that I do now and multiple income streams. So that's just something to think about, is to keep trying. Even if you fail, try again if you can. And if you really have that why, and why you're doing this, like, I love that you kind of say on your channel a lot about the why and how important that is. So that's, I guess, my advice for anyone starting in 2023.
So good. Thank you so much, Heather. So for those of you that are watching, make sure you go over to Heather Studio. That's her channel. She also has Hey Heather. It's a newer channel that she started. And if you want to get more advice and more knowledge and learn how to really diversify and become financially independent, Heather teaches you everything that you need to know. So make sure you go and subscribe. Her links to her channels will be in the description down below. It was so good to have you on today, Heather, and look forward to connecting with you again in the future and seeing where your streams of income take you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.